Okay.
That sounds delicious. Okay, we are now live and recording. Should we get started? We'll wait.
We
See if
can.
he joins us. Okay.
Ben and John Selstrom are both joining.
Okay. Looks like John is joining right now. All right. I haven't seen Ben yet, Crystal, but we'll call the meeting to order and we'll go from there. So we'll call the meeting of the Jamestown Local Development Corporation to order February 17th, 2021. It's now currently 5:03 p.m. Stephanie, if you could please call the roll, make sure we have everyone
Absolutely. Eddie Sundquist,
here.
Tony Dulce,
Here.
Kimberly Eklund,
Here.
Tom Nelson,
Here.
Vicki McGraw,
Here.
Christopher Selstrom,
Here.
Tim Smeal,
Here.
Pete Shira,
Present.
and Peggy Kaltenmeyer.
Here.
And with us, we also have, looks like Ben Haskins. Is he here yet? Yes, we have Ben Haskins. We have Crystal Surdick, John Selstrom, and myself.
Fantastic. Thank you. So this is our annual board meeting. So we've got a few things to get out of the way before we have some great discussion tonight. First and foremost, and Crystal or Stephanie, you correct me, we need to elect officers for treasurer and secretary.
Correct.
Okay. We typically have a president and vice president by virtue of the office, but we still need a treasurer and secretary.
That's correct.
Okay.
Currently, we have Vicki McGraw as secretary.
Okay. She's done a
Nominate Vicki
fantastic
again if
job
she's
in her
willing.
secretarial duties.
I
Vicki, are you-
nominate Vicki if she'll do it again.
I would second that nomination.
so Vicki, do you want to accept?
I will accept.
Okay. Vicki's accepted. Is there any other nominations for treasurer? All right, we'll continue that great streak that she's brought us. I apologize. Was that secretary or treasurer?
Secretary.
I was secretary.
I was going to say, I think you had the wrong.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say treasury? I meant.
Nope, that was me. Treasurer. Any nominations for treasurer?
Who's currently?
Oddly enough, I do not have that listed.
Okay.
In fact, Kim, I thought it was you.
I don't know about that. Bean counter?
Any nominations?
Well, I would nominate Kim. She's certainly qualified. I'm not going to do it, but I know you got a lot on your plate, but
Do we have a second for Kim?
I will second that nomination.
Second for Tony. Kim, do you accept?
Sure.
Okay. Any other nominations for treasurer? All right, hearing none. Do we have a motion to accept the slate of officers? Edward Sundquist, president, Tony Dulce, vice president by virtue of office, treasurer, Kim Eklund, secretary, Vicki McGraw.
so moved.
So moved by Tom. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Tony Dulce. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right, motion is carried. The next item for business, we have the agreement between the Jamestown Urban Renewal Agency and Jamestown Local Development Corporation in the amount of $140,000 for the calendar year 2021 for staffing needs. For the members of staff, anything you want to add to this?
Not unless there are any specific questions.
Is this the,
The designation of myself, so that we'll have to go back one on the agenda.
oh, yes. I will go back to that one. Apologies for that. Jumped ahead. But we still, the amount for 140,000, that is the same as last year?
Correct.
Do we have a motion to go forward with that resolution?
So moved.
So moved by Tony, second.
Second.
Second by Vicky. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? Chris abstaining?
I'm going to abstain since my brother works for that organization.
Okay, we have one abstention. The motion has carried. We do have, and I apologize, I skipped this one, my excitement for the election of officers, designation of Crystal Surdick as Executive Director of the Jamestown Local Development Corporation. Anyone like to make that motion?
So moved.
So moved by Tim Smeal, second
I did.
by Kim.
I will.
Fantastic. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, motion is carried. Moving on to item number 3. It's the designation of Key Bank and Evans Bank as depositories of the Jamestown Local Development Corporation. Anything from staff or other members of the board? All right, anyone like to make that motion?
Move.
Moved by Chris Selstrom, second.
I think Vicky's.
Move.
Second by Vicky. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right, motion is carried. Item number 4, authorizing the mayor, president of the agency, the city finance director, and the city comptroller to serve as signatories on all JLDC financial accounts, and authorizing Crystal Surdick, John Selstrom to make transfers for the Jamestown Local Development Corporation.
So moved.
So moved by Tony, second.
Second.
Second by Kim. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstaining? Chris Selstrom abstaining. I will also abstain for that motion. So that has passed. Number 5, appointing Benjamin Haskin Esquire, legal counsel for JLDC. Anyone motion? Moved by Chris Selstrom, second. By
So
Tim
moved.
Neal. All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion is carried. And number 6, appointing a monthly placeholder meeting date for 2021. Do we have a date that we are planning on setting? Stephanie or Crystal?
Yeah, third Wednesday of each month.
Third Wednesday of each month. All right, so motion approving the third Wednesday of each month as the standing meeting date for the JLDC. Do we have a motion?
Moved.
Moved by Vicky, second by Tom. All those in, any discussion? All those in favor?
But, well, can I ask a question about the time, 5 o'clock? I don't know how that works for everyone. I mean, it's fine for me. It's just kind of throwing it out there if that's an issue or not.
It's been 5 for as long as I can remember, Tom.
No, I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Actually, at one point in time, Tom, I think it was 5:30,
Mhm.
and it moved up to 5 to
Yeah.
allow people to get there after work.
Right. Well, that was the only question I had about, I get home early enough for that and that's fine, but then keep it. It works.
I never leave home anymore, so.
That's true.
Hopefully that's
I
going
quit-
to change
I
this
quit
year.
this last week at 11 most nights, so I hear you, Chris.
Mhm.
Let's hope it changes, Peggy. I agree with you on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
All right. Any other discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion has carried. On to the items of our regular business meeting. Number one, consideration for the approval of the minutes for December 16th, 2020.
So moved.
So moved by Tony, second
Second.
by Kim. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right, we've approved the minutes. We also have the approval of the financial reports through the end of 2020. John, do we have any information you want to talk to us about the financial reports?
No, pretty steady, slow year because of the no interest, nothing new. We will do after the audit, the audited year end that will come later.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the financial reports for 2020?
So moved.
So moved by Kim, second
So moved.
by Tony Dulce. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right, approved. There was an acknowledgement of fiduciary duties and responsibilities. I don't believe we need a motion for this. I think we just need to have folks be aware to sign it. Is that right, Stephanie, John?
That's right. And I was going to send out a hard copy for everyone just to return. Is that okay with everyone?
Mhm.
All right,
Okey-doke.
I'll do that.
Fantastic. Appreciate it. Same thing with the whistleblower policy.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. And the conflict of interest disclosure statement, just knock all three of them off our list.
Right.
All
So
right.
those will all be sent to us? Is that what you're saying?
Right. They'll all be sent to you. I'll even give you a self-addressed stamped envelope and
Or I
spring
can-
for a stamp.
Big spender over here.
I still have to sign the other ones. I should just come in and just do it. So
Okay.
I can drop them back off, but that's fine.
You know, I filled out the conflict of interest one for the city council and just typed in my signature, and that was okay. I don't know if that works here, but if you're mailing it, then
Yeah.
Cool.
Just mail it, just have everything permanent and as is.
Okay.
all right.
Any other discussions? All right. Number 6 on our item would be the discussion of the state's recommendation for the reallocation of the downtown fund programming. I don't know, Crystal, or if your team wants to talk about it.
I sent it out earlier today. I'll just give you guys all a overview. The state is recommending that we reallocate leftover funds from the downtown programming fund to something that is very similar and very closely resembles our CARES Act small business grant. Because the unknowns are, you know, we just don't know what this coming year looks like for events. It's not likely there will be large events that will be held. So we are already very close to our deadline to expend these funds. I think there is a little bit of flexibility in extending the deadline, but the state really does want us to spend our DRI funds for this program. So they're recommending that we reallocate leftover funds to something that looks similar to what I sent. Again, it's very similar to the small business CARES Act grant relief program that we had done. To update you on where we are with the Fund for Downtown Programming funds, we really didn't have funds that were left over. They've all been awarded but not dispersed. So there are a number of events that had been awarded that can now not go forward. So we are looking, I guess my my recommendation or a suggestion that I'd like your input on, with those applicants who had been awarded previously, the way it was set up was they could apply for up to $50,000, and that would help them, pay for their talent, pay for the event itself, and they could generate a certain percentage of revenue that could go back into their program or organization. I'll give the example of there was going to be a cook-off event that they were approved for the full $50,000, and they were only going to generate $8,000 in revenue once the event was said and done. So my thinking is reach out to these organizations, have them resubmit to us a description of what they would use that, let's use that $8,000 as an example. They still can generate that or have that $8,000 grant amount based on the revenue that they had projected from their previous application, and submit to us what they would use that $8,000 for. So I don't know if that makes sense. If you have questions on that and what my thinking is. So they still have the same opportunity to bring in the same amount of money that they would have had they held their event, but they will use it. They'll have to kind of resubmit a narrative that explains what they'll use it for. And that actually will open up additional funds so that we can offer some additional grants.
Crystal, can I make a recommendation or add on to that?
Absolutely.
So it makes sense. There were organizations that were awarded funding and obviously cannot have those events. So giving them an opportunity to recoup some of the revenue they expected but couldn't in terms of a grant format.
Yep.
Is there something we could do for the remaining funds to support our arts, entertainment, and kind of cultural institutions? I've received, call after call from different organizations that obviously are hurting tremendously and, have not been able to apply for a PPP loan or have not qualified because they might be a civic event or some type of institution. Could we utilize some of that funding or check with the state on whether we could utilize that funding as a potential grant mechanism for smaller grants to those arts, entertainment, and civic institutions in the city, similar to the CARES Act funding we had?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great solution. In this template that came from the state, they had suggested up to $50,000, and I think that was just kind of based on what we had initially put as our maximum amount for event-based programming. I suggest that we can lower that. I don't know that it needs to be $50,000. I'm thinking more in line with 20,000, which is what we had done for the CARES Act funding. I don't know what everyone thinks about that. I think it's kind of meant to be, sort of a lifeline. It's not going to sustain a business for a long time, but kind of give them a little bit of relief.
I have a question about it. Is there like a target amount that we would be looking for to bring in revenue? 8,000.
So that was just a hypothetical example based on an event that had been submitted. So it was a cook-off event, and it may have even been 10,000 that they were planning to generate revenue off of. The state did have a kind of a percentage cap no more than 20%. So any event, regardless of how much revenue the event itself generated, the organization, the state wanted to keep that below a 20% threshold, if you will.
Okay.
But I don't think there's a magic number necessarily, Tom.
Mhm.
Hey, Crystal, I
Mhm.
think what Tom wasn't on when a lot of these, even Eddie wasn't the mayor at the time, a lot of these grants were awarded. I think what might help them is to get a list of who actually received them and did them in the past. And then in particular, the ones that you're talking about, like, I don't know if Pat Smeraldo would even be able to come up with something else. You know, all his events evolve around kids and crowds.
Right.
You know, just thinking of him as an example. So I think that might help educate and refresh our memories, even those that were on before, as to what
Sure.
was left open.
Yeah, absolutely. I have an ongoing spreadsheet
I knew you did.
that will be easy for you guys to see even where we are in terms of spending and other events that may or may not have been approved.
You know, and some of the one of those groups, like that cooking show, you know, you even wonder if they've changed their focus now with COVID or even still
Mhm.
exist.
Right.
So I don't know. I guess things have changed, that there's so many businesses and things that are struggling and hanging on and or closing doors, and
Mhm.
you know, maybe they could tie in with something new and creative that they've sparked their mind on. I mean, hard to say.
Yeah.
I think the best course of action would be to make sure we have an updated spreadsheet as Kim recommended. And then if your staff wants to go through the grant plan template, maybe we could propose one to the JLDC board, and that we could have it for the next meeting and try to finish that up.
Sounds good.
Sound like a plan for everyone?
Mhm.
If there's any further feedback or thoughts on how the grant funding for the remaining funds should go, please let Stephanie, Crystal, and her staff know so that we can incorporate that as part of the plan for the additional funding. Great.
That's good.
All right. If there's no other discussion on that item, we'll move to the JLDC loan program rewrite.
You're on mute.
Stephanie, you're on mute.
There. I don't know how many months we've been at this, but I think this might be the third rewrite. And recently I made another change. I spoke with Greg Noon. He sits on our Jura board, and he's a banker. I forget the name of his bank. He's in Erie, Pennsylvania right now. So he works in both Erie and Warren, Pennsylvania, but he's a great source of knowledge when it comes to risk taking and how to build these loans. And so we know exactly what we want to do. And the reason that I'm rewriting these loan programs, there's two different ones and there's two different reasons. The first one, the small business startup assistance loan, is for these people who are coming to us with their idea, maybe a great idea. They just need more guidance. They need a small amount of funding and some real encouragement from the city. The other one is a program just to pull all of our programs together under one umbrella so that people are not so kind of confused and maybe even turned away from JLDC loans because they were just so targeted. You know, a 3% interest rate plus prime for a restaurant, covering 75% of the program cost. But then you go to a small business and it's something completely different. Only 50% of the project costs, only up to $30,000, prime plus one. So I wanted to bring this all together, and Greg really helped with that. So the small business startup at our last meeting, we talked about kind of where this was being developed and for whom. And something we all agreed to was that the number one, we had to have a cap on this loan, this pot of money. And I'm suggesting a cap of $120,000 for the program. So that's it. So when that's gone, you know, it'll have to be revolving. So as it gets paid back, it'll come out again. These small business loans are only $10,000 to $15,000. But on top of that cap, we also talked about having a limit of two loans a year, because this is going to be very staff intensive. Also, if we do have the CDBG funding for our finance mentor, and there's a title to them, and I'm saying it wrong, but they would be a mentor to our small businesses who would take on this loan. And it's going to be very labor intensive for everyone. So that's why we chose just 2 a year. So if you had a chance to look over this, I asked for any questions or any feedback. I didn't get any from the board. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to share now? Because we've been at this for about 4 times now, so I want to wrap this up. Does anyone have any questions about what's being proposed?
I'm curious, it's the 50% versus the 70%. I mean, I think some of the other loan programs, the ones that we're talking about consolidating into this, there was reasons why they were different percentages, and some are fixed assets that aren't going anywhere in the city. So the programs match a higher percentage, whereas others included capital for operations or for smaller items like furniture and equipment, and they were matched at a lower percentage because it's a higher risk asset.
Right.
I guess I question the 70% number on the second program.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was referring to just the small business, but we'll get to that, Chris. I didn't make that clear, and you bring up a point that I did talk to Greg Noom about and have made some adjustments. So with the small business startup assistance loan, does anyone have any questions or any input about that? It's going to be a lot of work on both hands, you know, for staff, for the mentor, and mostly, obviously, for the borrower. There's going to be a lot of upfront work for them. Working with the Small Business Development Center, working with an advisor to complete licensing certificates. I mean, it's basically everything that they're going to need to be successful, and constant mentoring throughout that first year after they get the loan.
I think there's been a call up for need for this program, so I'm excited that we're going to probably come out with a program, and thanks for all the work that you put into trying to come up with something that protects JLDC's assets, but also is able to further the overall goal of Jamestown and meet those needs that have been asked for.
Thanks. And the loans, you know, they can be used to cover up to 50% of the project costs. The applicant would have to invest 25% of their own capital in the project costs, or have personal investors or traditional banks for the additional 25%. Okay, do you have a question, Eddie?
No, I was going to say, if there's no other discussion,
Good.
just echo Chris, thank you all for the work that you guys did. I know this was tough, not easy redeveloping loan programs, especially during a pandemic and retooling things. So well done. It sounds like we're going to submit this for a resolution at the next JLDC board meeting for approval. Does that sound right for staff?
There's one thing I wanted to point out, which Chris pointed out for the small business development assistance. That's the loans anywhere from 15 to 75,000. And we do have a fixed interest rate, but it does change depending, like Chris said, on risk, on personal credit history and type of project. And in our old loan format, you could have someone who was a great credit risk, but they were paying higher percentage because they were getting a restaurant loan, even though they had, they put in so much of their own time, their own money, their own capital. They had great collateral, but they were getting hit with these very high interest rates. So in this, the way this is, I'm suggesting it be developed now, is that we do leave that interest rate to flex depending on the risk. And you know, we can keep working on that, you know, as we go. Every loan is so completely different, and each person brings on their own risk. So that's something that is different. I also went back to the traditional 50% project cost, 40% from a bank or other partner, 10% from the applicant, the borrower. That seems to be the standard throughout the banking industry. The difference here is that prior to people coming to us, you know, to JLDC, we were always kind of the second person in line, or supposed to be. It's never worked out that way. People come to us first and then go seek out a bank. So what I'm suggesting is a partnering with a small business development center to assist our applicants in building relationships with banks and knowing where to go and how to go about doing that, how to go about filling out an application, understanding what collateral is. Sometimes they don't even understand that. And also something that Greg suggested, and I liked it, was that we could do a pre-qualification through with a JLDC, and then it's our letter going to the bank saying, we have this secured, 50% of the project, if you would put in 40. Like I said, traditionally it's supposed to be, they come to us from the bank, but it rarely has been that, at least in the 6 years that I've done this.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any other further discussion? All right. Awesome. We appreciate that. It looks like I'll see if there's any further items for discussion for general session. All right, Crystal, are there any items for executive session?
Ooh,
You're
you're
on mute.
muted. You're muted.
Oh, Crystal?
Apologies.
There she
Yes,
is.
we do have a couple of items that we want to go over in executive session.
What do you have, Crystal?
We have one item regarding a potential lawsuit.
Okay.
And Stephanie, was there one other thing?
A Dave Warren update.
Okay. Is it an active litigation, or is it a?
It's an active litigation, not pertaining directly to us, but it's an update on an
Okay. All right, so we've got two items for executive session. We have a motion to go in executive session.
So move.
Moved by Tony, second by Tim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. There's no action to be taken. Is that correct?
no action to be taken.
Okie doke. With that, our public session is over. We will move into executive session. Have who's staying on? Ben from
Everyone
staff.
can.
I'm sorry. Tim, I know you're staying on. Stay here. Don't go anywhere.
John, you can go. Ben, if you would stay.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks,
Good night.
John. Give me a minute to stop our recording.